Okay, so we've got a stack of stuff about pizza history here. Articles, encyclopedia entries, even a podcast episode. Wow. Someone was hungry for knowledge. And trust me, this isn't just about what's on the pizza. We're going deep.
Yeah, it's really interesting how pizza, the food that's like loved everywhere, has roots that go way beyond Italy. Most people think of Italy when they think of pizza.
Totally. Most people probably don't realize that pizza's story starts way, way back. Like ancient times. I was surprised to see ancient Egypt and Persia in here. What's the deal with that? Was flatbread just a universal comfort food?
Seems like it. We see these early kinds of flatbreads in tons of ancient cultures, probably because it was a pretty easy and flexible way to cook with just basic ingredients. Like, there's this example of Persian soldiers back in the 6th century BC that actually baked flatbreads on their battle shields. Can you imagine?
On their battle shields.
Yeah, and they'd top them with things like cheese and dates,
Wow.
tactical flatbread on the battlefield.
That's a meal plan I could have gotten behind. Way better than like MREs. But what's so cool is how we go from these ancient flatbreads to a dish that like royalty ate. One of these sources talks about Queen Margherita of Italy and her connection to pizza.
Right, it's a classic example of a food that goes from a humble, everyday meal to like a symbol of being Italian. For centuries, pizza was seen as street food in Naples, mostly eaten by working-class people. But as it got more popular, it finally got the attention of the upper classes, even Queen Margherita herself.
That story about Queen Margherita just reminds me of how food can become, fancy, like it
Right.
climbed the social ladder one slice at a time.
Yeah, yeah.
But before we get too far ahead, I got to ask about something I saw in one of these articles. Tomatoes. Apparently, they weren't always a beloved pizza topping.
It's true. It might surprise you to learn that tomatoes were actually kind of like viewed with suspicion in Europe.
Really?
Yeah, some people thought they were poisonous. It
What?
took a while for them to, become cool and end up on, well, everything, including pizza.
That's a great example of how something we think is like traditional food today actually has this really interesting history.
Definitely.
It makes you wonder how people will view the food we eat, hundreds of years from now.
Absolutely. And speaking of big cultural changes and pizza, one of these sources, a website about pizza history, highlights a super important time, World War II.
Mm.
This is where things changed for pizza in a big way. American soldiers who were stationed in Italy during the war, they got a taste for pizza for the first time.
Oh, the GIs who came back loving pizza.
Right.
That's a legacy we're still enjoying today. But can you imagine being those soldiers? Going from like army rations to trying real deal Italian pizza
Right.
and then coming back home and trying to describe this amazing food to like their friends and family who never even heard of it. They were like early pizza ambassadors paving the way for the pizza craze in America.
For sure, they definitely played a role.
Right.
And this is when we see pizza going totally global. As Italian immigrants came to the U.S., they brought their pizza recipes, right?
Yeah.
And they found all these people who were ready to love pizza thanks to those soldiers who had been to Italy.
It makes you wonder what those soldiers would think of pizza today, though.
Totally.
The different styles, the toppings,
Oh.
even the pineapple debate. Speaking of which, one article mentions that pineapple on pizza actually started in Canada.
Yeah.
Some Greek immigrant came up with it. Wild, right?
It really is. I mean, it's so interesting to see how, people moving around has shaped how pizza evolved.
Yeah, yeah.
Italian immigrants bringing their skills to the U.S., that Greek immigrant and his pineapple in Canada. It shows how food is connected to cultures, mixing, and people being creative. And then, of course, you have the classic American pizza styles, New York thin crust, Chicago deep dish. Each one shows how creative people get with pizza.
Yeah, for sure. It's amazing how pizza went from basic flatbread to like this global food that everyone makes their own.
Yeah, it really shows you how powerful food can be.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that even something as like simple as pizza has this whole huge, complicated history.
I was thinking about that article, the one about the Associazione Veroci Pizza Napolitana. It's like a whole group dedicated to making sure real Neapolitan pizza stays authentic.
Oh, yeah, they have all these rules about like what you can put on it, how you have to make it, even the oven you have to use.
Wow, so specific.
Yeah, they're serious.
Like they're protecting a tradition, right? Making sure all those old school techniques and flavors don't disappear with all the new stuff.
Exactly. I mean, it makes you think about tradition versus, new ideas in food. It's like you want to respect where it came from, keep those old ways alive, but then you also have people always experimenting, trying to create new flavors and styles.
Such a cool dilemma, right? And it makes you wonder, what's next for pizza? Anything stand out to you when you were going through all this stuff?
One thing that really struck me is how pizza shows us how our whole food culture is changing.
How so?
Well, think about like frozen pizza and all those delivery places.
Yeah.
That tells us that people want things easy and fast these days.
True. Can't imagine life without being able to order a pizza on a Friday night. But yeah, you're right. It makes you wonder about what you lose, like
Yeah.
that homemade feel you get from a traditional pizzeria.
Yeah, for sure. And that whole like balance is going to keep shaping what pizza becomes in the future. Will people want simpler ingredients, more like the original pizzas? Or will we have crazy technology, like robot pizza chefs and drones delivering them?
Okay, those are some food trends I'd love to see. It seems like there are endless possibilities, just like all the toppings you can put on pizza.
Exactly. That's what makes it so fun to talk about. The story of pizza isn't over. Who knows what's coming next?
Right. It's a food that's always changing, showing us how our tastes are changing, how cultures are mixing, how technology changing things.
Definitely.
So next time you're enjoying a slice, remember, you're not just having a meal, you're tasting history.
Love that. Couldn't have said it better myself.